The hijab has been defined and described by many people in many different ways. I personally don't like the descriptions that talk about plastic around lollipops and peels around oranges and these kinds of things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't tell us in the Quran that the hijab is so that we can have an orange peel around us and be protected from ants and bugs. But rather, the verses of Quran that speak to us of hijab speak to us of empowerment. And yu'rifna wala yu'dain. That we should put on this scarf, wear our hijab, in order that we might be known. We stand as a standard for our religion. A standard that stands strong and calls to all and says, I am a Muslim woman. I am a religious woman. I am a woman of faith. I stand for a certain way of thinking, a certain way of belief. It's interesting that throughout our history at different times, people have discussed and wanted to discuss the issue of is it farad or not? Is it an obligation or not? And I find as a woman, the argument that it is not farad an interesting dismissal of the witnessing of women. The women of the Prophet ﷺ, by that I mean the women who were first there, who heard these verses first. Their response when they heard the verse was an immediate tearing of fabric that they had embroidered and stitched. Now, if you embroider and stitch fabric, you value it. They took this valuable fabric, tore it, and put it upon themselves. What does this tell us? It tells us that they heard, they understood, they responded. It tells us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that our sharia, our law, is based on looking at the personal responses of women to the Quran. Their response. Those who tell you the Prophet ﷺ didn't say, wear hijab, are dismissing the actions of these women. This is a Sahih Bukhari event. This is an event that is found in our most trusted resources. The story of alcohol, when the people of Medina threw the alcohol in the streets, we proudly speak of this event as part of the proof that finally alcohol and drinking had been made haram. In the same way, we need to proudly speak of the event of these women who stood and heard and acted and put their hijab on. This is a word we use today, hijab. It's not the word of the Quran. The Quran uses different words to indicate hijab. Jalbabihinna and khimarihinna. Both of these words meaning the scarf that I'm wearing on my head today. Also, both of them, especially jalbabihinna, indicating also that fabric that comes down and covers the rest of the body. The hijab is an empowering system. It is a system that gives women the opportunity to avoid the sexual exploitation that has been part of the capitalist system, to yet go out in the world and be an activist, be part of the cultural development of her society and her community, while avoiding the harassment that has been part and parcel of life for women.
Niqab by agreement is not a cultural thing. In fact, Imam al-Ghazali goes as far as saying that there is a practical consensus of the Muslims during his time to not allow, and that is Imam al-Ghazali reporting from the end of the 5th century, beginning of the 6th century. He's reporting about the condition of the Muslims during his time, talking about the end of 5th century, beginning of the 6th century, because a lot of people, come up with those, ridiculous claims. I'm from Egypt, so in Egypt they say it's a Turkish innovation. It's an Ottoman Turkish innovation. Imam al-Ghazali was reporting this way before the Ottomans came to existence. In fact, way before the Ottomans came into Islam to begin with. So he was reporting that the Muslimun had agreed on not allowing the women to walk out with their face showing. So it's a practical agreement. It is agreement in practice this is not the scholarly consensus that would make the matter a decisive matter. I personally, to clarify my position, I believe that niqab is not mandatory. I believe that the majority of the scholars, the position of the majority of the scholars, which is that niqab is preferred as the sunnah of the mothers of the believers, or the way of the mothers of the believers.
Something we should know, it's very important. The term hijab in the Quran does not mean headscarf. In our vernacular, it means a headscarf. We say, does she wear hijab? I started wearing the hijab, means the headscarf. This is modern Arabic, which is fine, not a problem. Quranic Arabic, the hijab meant a physical curtain that separates the entire body, not just on your body. It's a curtain between you and the speaker. This is the Quranic usage of hijab. And this usage of hijab, according to the Quran, only the wives of the Prophet ﷺ have to enforce that type of hijab. As for the headscarf, the Quran references this with the term khimar. With the term khimar. وَلْيَضْرِبْنَ بِخُمُرِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ. Let them wear their khimar, khumur, plural of khimar, over their juyub, which is their bosoms. Their scarves should cover their chests as well. Because the women of Jahiliyyah, by the way, they would wear headscarves, by the way. The women of Jahiliyyah would wear a headscarf. Every respectable, dignified lady would cover her hair, just like in America 100 years ago. Impossible for a dignified lady. Only the peasants and the rural people without money, without education, they would be without. And the same in Arabia. Every single lady of respect and of middle class would wear a headscarf. But, just like in America as well, the headscarf would be thrown back and the dresses get lower and lower. You get the point, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, no. When you wear the headscarf, cover the bosom. وَلْيَضْرِبْنَ بِخُمُرِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ. Right? So anyway, the point here, Aisha says the verses of hijab had been revealed. And by this we mean an extra layer above and beyond the khimar, above and beyond the jilbab, which is another Quranic term, right? يا أيها النبي يا قل لأزواجك وبناتك ونساء المؤمنين يدنين عليهن من جلابيبهن. That's another verse. So the khimar and jilbab is mentioned for all women. The mothers of the believers, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ, and all of the women. Khimar and jilbab. And this is what our sisters wear.
I want people to know that when I choose to cover this way, it's because I am fighting against a systematic oppression against women in which women's bodies are being sexualized and objectified. This is a different perspective and a different form of empowerment in which I think when I'm in public, my sexuality is in my control and people have to deal with my brain and who I really am and not judge me by my body. And if we want to really talk about the oppressive situation of women, let's talk about all of the eating disorders, all of the plastic surgery, all of the unhealthy diets that are being done, all in the name of having the perfect body. To me, this is liberating and this is empowering.
This isn't Saudi Arabia, it's the American Southwest. And 32-year-old Hiba Ahmed believes that covering is a way to express her identity, not to erase it. But in the Quran, it doesn't say that women should cover their faces.
That's correct.
It says that they should dress modestly.
Exactly. The term Islam means submission to the will of God. And we believe that our Creator is the one that is most worthy of telling us how to live our life. And that He did enjoin modesty in the Quran. And my understanding is that the minimum requirement for modesty is, for women, is everything but the face and hands. But we also know that many of the pious Muslim women in our history also chose to cover their face as well. And it's an extra step that people can do. And for me personally, it was something that I believe believe brings me closer to God. It was my way of saying, you know what? This is my empowerment. This is my liberation, because so many times in society, and I think most women would agree with this, women are objectified, they're sexualized, they're used to sell product, their bodies, their worth is in their bodies. And for me, my sexuality is in the comfort of my own home, in the commitment of my marriage. People are just staring because they're curious, because they don't understand. It's not because they're scared. It's not necessarily because they're hateful, but they just don't understand. And in so many ways, it's really pushed me to be more outgoing, to start up conversations with cashiers and with people in the mall.
Okay,
and we end up laughing and having so much in common. And it's really been a door to building bridges and opening dialogue. And so in general, although there may be, you know, a minority of negative reaction, in general, people are really open to wanting to know who I am.
What's that negative reaction been like?
You know, one time I was like walking in Walmart and I was, you know, carrying a bottle of bleach, and so someone came out behind me and said, she's going to make a bomb with that. She's a terrorist, you know, a couple of times. But the really great thing was that the other people who would hear these comments would actually come to my defense. America is one of the best place in the world for me to live right now. I could not imagine living anywhere else. I have never lived anywhere else. American values and Western values are tolerance, freedom of religion, acceptance of all, belief that we are all human beings, that we have children that we love, we have the right to you know, live our life and follow our religion in the way that we see fit, as long as we don't hurt others.
People who don't necessarily know enough about Islam will look at you and say, this is such a barbaric religion. She is being oppressed. She's being forced to wear it.
Yes.
I mean, what do you say to that?
A woman came up to me once and she said, "Are you being abused by your husband?" And I said, "That's funny. If you ask him, he might say that I take advantage of him a little bit too much."
I don't understand is
what we don't understand is how this piece of cloth can cause so much hatred, controversy, friction,
squabble.
Everybody's talking about it. In fact, everybody wants to ban it. But why? Is it because they think that the Muslim woman is oppressed? But I can speak perfectly fine.
They think we need to be liberated, be free.
They want us to be like the Western women, the so-called symbol of femininity. What? High heels, lipstick, short skirts?
This liberates you?
Is it because we dress the same?
Or because we look the same?
The Muslim woman means so much more than just her physical appearance.
We don't want to be defined by the way we dress.
I want you to judge me by my intellect, not by how short my skirt is.
Is it because you think we're forced to wear it? I don't wear it because my husband forced me to.
I'm not even married.
Or my father forced me to. I wear it solely because God tells us to, and we want to please Him.
We are subservient to God and not to the trends of fashion or society.
But hold on. You say we're forced, but yet you force us to take it off.
Is it because you think it's a communication barrier?
Well, what does communication really mean? According to the Oxford Dictionary, it could either mean
1. The imparting or exchanging of information by speaking, writing or using some other medium.
or
2. The means of sending or receiving information such as telephone lines or computers.
So how exactly does the niqab prevent this?
let's test it out. Testing, testing.
We hear you loud and clear.
It's clear to see when you're speaking to somebody, you don't have to see their face.
Just like when you're speaking on the phone, you can't see them.
So really, if you want to ban the niqab, you should start with the mobile phones first.
Is it because of the way we interact with men?
Or don't interact with men? God tells us to maintain a boundary with the opposite gender.
This is to prevent any form of promiscuity from either sides.
Men are ordered to lower the gaze and we are ordered to cover.
Besides, I don't want to be just another rape statistic.
Or is it because we challenge the norms of society?
Because we decide to stay covered whilst everybody else wants to uncover.
We live in a society where the biggest industry is pornography and still increasing.
And the status of woman is slowly decreasing. Western woman is seen as merely a sex object.
Exploited for her beauty for materialistic gain.
Like selling a car?
Or even selling a chocolate bar.
Okay. Enough discussion.
I think it's time for us to tell you about the niqab.
This piece of cloth that you call it,
It honors me.
It protects me.
It tells me my body belongs to me, nobody else.
nobody can tell me how to dress, what to say, how to look.
Apart from God Almighty.
This is true liberation. Liberated from the dictates of fashion and society.
This is true freedom, being free from the submissions of man's desires.
This is true femininity because we preserve our beauty rather than being exploited for
The
it.
symbol of oppression is not the Muslim woman, it is in fact the Western woman.
Which is why we present to you Islam. We want to give you the solution for a society that is spiraling backwards.
Islam is in fact the religion to take this society forwards.
To finally restore the much needed honor, dignity and respect.
Not to just women, but men too. In fact, all of mankind.
And so to conclude,
It's time for you and I
To join the campaign.